Mic check, 1, 2. 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 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check, 1, 2. 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check, 1, 2.
The House Transportation Committee for January 25th, 2022 is now in session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Boyd, Campbell, Grills, Halford, Hicks, Hurt, Kiesling, Marsh, McKenzie, Potts, Powers, Russell, Thompson, Todd, Towns, Vital, Weaver, Whitson, Vice Chairman Hall.
Here.
Chairman Howe.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let me just say I'm amazed and grateful that we have a quorum this morning. We have a very short calendar, committee members. In fact, it's so short that I think Representative Grills has agreed to buy everybody breakfast when we get done here. Oh, did I misunderstand that? I must have misunderstood that. Probably so, yeah. Let's start with item number 2. Representative Weaver isn't here, and she isn't here. We're going to roll that for 1 week. Do what? Oh, here she comes. We will defer that. And then we'll still go back with number 1. Item number 1 is House Bill 1392 by Representative Freeman. I have a motion, a second. Representative Freeman, you are recognized. Before we get into the bill, I understand you had an amendment, but you're not going to run the amendment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Let me just give the committee the posture of where the bill is now for the benefit of the new members. This bill passed Chairman Whitson's subcommittee last session. It was rolled to the first calendar of this year to the full committee calendar, and that's the posture of the bill right now. So we'll please explain your bill to us.
Thank you, Chairman. As I was looking through the calendar, I thought, what jerk is going to bring all you guys here at 8 o'clock in the morning to vote on a bill? So I apologize for being that guy. So this bill was debated last year. I agreed to roll it to the first calendar of this year to give an opportunity for all the parties to have a chance to talk. There was some misconception that maybe the city was unwilling to meet with the folks, and that some meetings hadn't happened, and so we wanted to make sure that took place. So this is a statewide permissive bill that authorizes local governments the opportunity to regulate entertainment transportation. It defines entertainment transportation as a motor vehicle for hire that provides both entertainment and transportation. It excludes cabs, limousines, sedans, shuttles from this. And right now, in downtown Nashville, we have a pretty major issue with these party buses. We have businesses that are moving out of downtown because of the noise and the constant movement around in front of their business. We've got families that are deciding not to take their kids downtown because of the lewd behavior that's going on in a lot of these buses. I've had people ask, what's the difference between this and a bar? And the difference is I can choose to not take my children into a bar. But if I take my kids downtown to go see a football game or a hockey game, I have to make sure that they look away when these buses drive by. And a lot of the things I'm going to say are currently illegal, but hearing reports of them, flashing pedestrians, children, hearing reports of them, dancing inappropriately off the side of the buses, hearing reports of them drinking excessively. And what this bill does is super simple. It's small government in the essence. It simply gives municipalities the opportunity to regulate something that today they don't. These buses are state licensed buses, and they have a state requirement to be downtown. This gives from the state the ability for a municipality to do it. And several of you have asked, why don't we put some guardrails in and make it a more prescriptive bill? My solution or my answer to that is every municipality is going to be different. What's best for Lebanon is not going to be what's best for Franklin, and it's not going to be what's best for Jackson. And us trying to guess what these municipalities need to be able to make it safe for their community should be made on that local level. I've been working really hard on this for the last couple of years because this is truly affecting the city that I love. And I really hope I can gain everyone's support to pass this, because if not, I'm afraid something really bad could happen. Last year, we had somebody fall off and break a leg. They could have just as easily been run over and killed. If we can't rein this in, something really bad is going to happen. And with that, I ask for your support.
Thank you, Representative. Questions from the committee? We have a list beginning. Representative Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Agreed that regulations are needed on looking at these situations, but I guess what I would ask is it's been discussed already, and there's a pretty extensive list of requirements that applicant has to meet. And it will take a pretty significant investment for them to meet those requirements. Will they be granted a permit if they meet all of those requirements because they have met them, or is there still an option to be denied even if they've met all the requirements that Metro has listed?
This bill doesn't contemplate that. I have no reason to believe that anybody will be denied a permit for any reason. I will say that the cities need to be able to have a say in how many permits get issued. I go back to the bar example. Right now, the health department and the fire department, or fire inspector, whatever the term is, has a right to limit the number of people. I bet you if you look around here, there may be a capacity limit in this room. And the city should have the same right to be able to say, listen, if somebody comes in and floods the market with 10,000 buses, the city should say, you've locked our city down. We need to be able to make sure that, you know, life safety, fire, and ambulances can get around to pick people up and free up the road. So this doesn't contemplate it. My intent is not to limit people that are following the rules to be issued a permit. And I'll go on the record right now and say that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I support this legislation. I know I'm going to sound like an old guy, but I remember Nashville in the late 50s and the early 60s. I was born and raised here. Nashville was my hometown for my first 22 years. And I've seen a lot. I lived in 9 states, and I've never seen anything like this that we have right now down on Lower Broadway. I remember Lower Broadway back in the day when you could take your dog down to Acme Feed Supply and get it dip free. And there was a free dog dip down there. And in fact, in the early 70s, my wife and I were planning on getting married, and she bought her Hope Chest at a furniture store down on Lower Broadway. Those are different days. And if many of you may not know this, but in the early 70s, there was a dip in the quality of life down on Lower Broad. It was a very seedy place. I rode with the Metro Police one night, and I was I was living in school at Murfreesboro at the time, and I was just shocked what was going on. But there was a rebirth and revitalization of the Lower Broad and downtown area that attracted tourists and a great clientele. In fact, Tootsie Bess, the world famous Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, was my neighbor in Woodbine when I was growing up. I don't think Tootsie would like what she sees today. It kind of took the soul and what really made Nashville as a music city and the venue for honky tonks, and it's changed. There is a way to do this. I remember several years ago, about 10 or 12 years ago, we had friends and family come in, and my wife took the group on a Nashville trash tour. It was a fun and entertaining experience. And there's ways to do this entertainment and do it the right way. It did not reflect poorly on Nashville, even though it was called the Nashville Trash Tour. But a few months ago, for the first time, we were downtown on Lower Broad on I think it was Saturday night, and I was shocked at the change in our city. I've been to New York, been Honolulu, Seattle, Las Vegas, and LA, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, but I never seen anything what was going on that evening down in Nashville. They have that saying, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. We don't want Nashville to become that kind of city, folks. It's too important to our economy, to our future, to attract the kind of business that we want in this community. And I've never seen it. I've been to all 95 counties, and I've never seen anything like this across the state of Tennessee. And I agree that we need to make sure that when the rules are followed, these companies are given the opportunity to conduct commerce in their business and not to do away with it, but do it in a way that's respectful to the citizens of Nashville, that increases our safety, but also reflects a positive image of our city across the country. So with that, Representative Freeman, I support your bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Thompson, you're on the list. You're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Does this apply to all municipalities in the state? All cities or counties can adopt this?
Yes, sir.
Just out of
It would
curiosity.
apply to everybody. And make a comment real quick on Representative Whitson's points. I have no intention through this legislation nor desire to shut any businesses down. I don't know how many of you have done it, but I've been on one of these party buses, and there are operators that are doing a great job, and people come to our city and they want to get on them and they want to have fun, and it's a bunch of fun. That's not what this is designated, or this bill is directed to. This is directed to the folks that come in, buy a surplus bus, spend a couple $100 on it, and they come down and potentially put those people that come to our city to enjoy their time at risk. And the overwhelming number of people in this industry that want to see some sense of regulation, because they do want to protect their investment. They do want to make sure that somebody, some rogue agent doesn't come down, create a situation that taints the whole industry, as has been done today. There are many people in this industry today that have spent their life savings. This is their small business. This will protect that asset, will protect that business moving forward. Because if not, you're not going to allow, people aren't going to want to get on them. It's just like at a restaurant, the health department coming in and inspecting to make sure that the food is safe to consume protects those businesses. Make sure that we all have the ability to stand up and say, when you go into that restaurant, we've done everything we can do to make sure that it's safe for you to eat there. This legislation is going to do the exact same thing and make it that it is a safe, fun, entertaining event for them to do, and protects those assets.
Did you have a follow-up, Representative Thompson?
No,
Okay.
no, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Fine, thank you.
Chairman Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do support this, and I understand what you're trying to do. And I've heard people say that they don't want to come back down here because it can get bad and nasty. And I don't think that's what we should be about in Nashville. I just want to go on record that I think that Metro Nashville ought to be fair in this. They ought to want to regulate fairly, but not ban, and make it where the average company can operate and make a profit. And I've heard rumors that the insurance, liability insurance is going to be really, really high. I think it's got to be fair. Do you or will we have any kind of say over what Metro does if it gets way out of hand, that we can bring it back, say, you've just gone overboard on this?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And that's a great question. Thanks for the support. I give my word here that if Metro goes crazy, we will come back and do something about it. I have zero intention of shutting the good actors down, and really the bad actors. I want everybody to be able to operate, but it needs to be safe. And so if this gets too far out, I've promised the industry that I will bring something back. I've promised the industry that I will go down and advocate on their behalf and let the city know that if they get too far out, that we will bring it back and do something. But we've got to give the ability for the local municipalities to make decisions that are best for them. I say it all the time. What's best for Nashville is not the same thing that's best for Franklin or Jackson or Lebanon. We have a different operating environment. We have different level of businesses. And it's not, one's not better than the other. They're just different. And allowing those decisions to be made where they affect the decision makers is the most important thing, in my opinion.
Did you have a follow-up?
Well, I do. I just think that in some of these regulations that, the free market should prevail. If we don't need to regulate maybe the number unless it gets way out of hand, but if you got too many, some of them are going to go broke and not operate anyway. Just a lot of times the free market regulates itself, is what I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Representative Todd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as Representative Marsh just said, I believe a lot of what's in this bill that it allows would be taken care of by the free market. Safety, for one thing. With all the ways of rating businesses right now, consumers look at that. They will find the ones that aren't safe, and those will go out of business. There's no doubt about that. That part will correct itself, because I don't think you can regulate these in such a way that will prevent some of the things you've talked about, individual behavior. Also, have a concern about changing rules in the middle of the game. It's a big deal to me. We have these businesses, as you've said, already established. They're already booking. They already have advertising contracts. They have bookings months out. And I know Metro already has a framework set up that they're working on to establish some rules, if this General Assembly allows them to, that will greatly restrict what they do. It will drive their cost up without question. I mean, there's talk of a $5 million liability policy. I don't even have that on construction sites. That's incredible. I'm not even sure they can get it. But if they did, it'd be very expensive. So you're looking at adding cost to them in the next couple of months that will affect the bookings they already have. Some of them could be put out of business, and they may already have advertising contracts. So I see some financial harm here if we change the rules in the middle of the game. And this goes into effect upon becoming law. It's not a delayed effect. And so that's one concern I have about it. Another concern is certainly some things that have already been mentioned here, that we're allowing an unfettered regulation by locals. We usually, as a General Assembly, put our subdivisions of the state in some sort of a box, and give them some parameters. Within these parameters, you can regulate. And this gives them pretty much an open-ended regulation, even to the effect of again, putting some out of business. Now, I know you said that's not your intent, but it allows them to do that by saying, you meet all these requirements, we don't necessarily have to give you a permit. You can do all the things we ask, but we don't have to give you a permit. So I think there's some language that should be added for that. And again, I have several other reasons, but those are my primary concerns here that aren't addressed in this bill. And I just think we're not being fair to the businesses that are already out there. I hear your concerns. I certainly have had some similar concerns, but I also think that there's a better way of going about this to give some better direction to the cities and counties as to how to regulate these and what their limits are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
I'm sorry, could I address that real quick?
Yes.
So
Go ahead.
I fully appreciate, we've spoken at length about this, and I really understand where you're coming from. On the free market and the businesses not going, being able to be around if they get bad reviews. One of the reasons that I had a person call me about this and complain and say, we've got to get some regulation, is there was a business that had bought a bus, driven downtown with no insurance, state minimum insurance, was serving alcohol on the bus, and they had hijacked the name of a reputable business. So when you typed in that name into their website, it sent you to their booking service, and they were getting bad reviews because people didn't know who they were booking with. The free market is extremely important to me and needs to be respected, but there needs to also be a belief that it's safe, or else the free market doesn't work. If I go out on one of these buses and die, the free market is not going to protect my life. We've got to make sure that these people have the ability to know that when their kids come to Nashville and they want to get on these buses, that there has been the minimum level of review to make sure that they're going to be able to get off and come back home to their family at the end of the day. And this is simply a state authorizer that gives the municipalities the ability to do something about it, because if we don't, something really bad is going to happen. The TLC, it's already in existence, went through this exact same thing with the pedal taverns and the golf carts, and nobody went out of business that I know of. They're all still operating, and so the idea that it's not going to be able to continue is to me unfounded. There's no reason to believe that they're not going to be here next year, and that's not my intent. And if that is the outcome, I promise you we will come back here and we'll fix it.
Thank you. Any follow-up? You're recognized.
Yes, please. I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you on those points, but we have no guarantees that they wouldn't put these out of business. There's nothing in this bill that gives them the guidelines to say you can affect current businesses for a length of time. Again, it goes into effect upon becoming law. So they could change those regulations the very next day, and these businesses could cease to exist. Would you agree that's a possibility? I mean, it would be possible for a local to outlaw these completely.
If one of the industry members decided to not follow any of the regulations, absolutely. I think they could be put out of business tomorrow. But that's not the intent. If someone comes downtown in a surplus, 1970s bus with no brake inspections, state minimum insurance standards, I think the city should have the right to ensure that bus isn't going to careen into thousands of people downtown, or that they're not going to have time checks on the drivers. I mean, you yourself know, on a construction site, you guys have the right to go and do spot inspections of folks. Right now, unless there's cause, they have no ability to do anything. These are state licensed vehicles driving on the roads, and the city has no authority to do anything with them right now. What this does is defines entertainment transportation and gives them the ability to put some reasonable safety regulations in place.
You're recognized.
One more time, because you didn't answer my question. With the way this is written, do you think it's plausible for a municipality to create rules and regulations and still not issue a permit if somebody meets all of those regulations?
This legislation does not contemplate any of that. What it contemplates is giving municipalities the ability to regulate. And as I've said before, what's best for Jackson and best for Franklin and best for Lebanon is totally different. One's not better than the other. They're just different. And so this would allow each one of those municipalities to do those regulations. So I don't know I can't answer your question based on what we've got in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just the way I read it, it puts no boundaries on the cities or counties. They literally could create all the regulations they want to and say, if you meet these regulations, we may issue a permit, but they don't have to. This does not give them the direction that they have to issue permits if someone meets those requirements. That's all I'm simply saying. It leaves that door open for them to completely close this down, existing businesses with existing contracts, and that's changing the rules in the middle of the game. And I can't go there. Just the way it's written, it could be amended, I think, to make it much better. And I would just implore you to consider that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I just want to reiterate, and I support Speaker Marsh's concerns, and I think you articulated that well. And if we see that this industry is being banned, we will readdress this next year in subcommittee. And I would welcome you to come back in the industry to address this concern. Thank you.
Okay, I have no one else on the list. Just a couple of questions. It seems like a couple of years ago, we had something that in my mind, is very similar to what we're facing now, and that was the electric scooters. I don't know if any of you on the committee remember or not, but that regulation came through this committee, and we gave the city the authority to regulate scooters, and we had some of the same arguments then we're having now, that we were going to put Bird and a lot of other scooter companies out of business. Well, they're still here. But it's a lot more safe, and we had, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Representative, but I believe we had one person either seriously injured or died on a scooter because it was just out of control. In fact, I think one of them got hit in front of the Cordell Hull building here. Someone coming out of the garage, and they just zipped in front of the car. It wasn't the driver's fault. But this is not uncommon. I mean, this is not unprecedented. We've done this before for this very city, for another type vehicle. And so I think that we have a track record of saying we're going to try to give the cities the opportunity to do what's best for their city. And in the case of the scooters, at least, it seems to have worked well. Now, I'm willing to be corrected if I'm wrong about that. But I think when I look at this, I take a broader view of this. And when I saw the photos and the pictures of something happening last year, I think it's around 4th of July, that was absolutely obscene that was taking place. It was obscene. And I thought of me and my grandkids, if we were having to be down there, how embarrassed I would have been. This is not just the city. This is the capital city of the state of Tennessee. And that's not the image that I want tourists to have when they come to visit our great state. So with that statement in mind, let me ask you this. Does your bill address insurance? Is it required?
No, sir. There are no requirements under this legislation
Okay.
at all.
But you anticipate that the city would require some insurance?
I would assume some. As I said earlier today, there are several operators with state minimum insurance. So
Okay.
same insurance that you would have on your car.
What about safety inspections for these vehicles?
This doesn't contemplate any of that, but I would assume there will be safety inspections.
You anticipate the city will require?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
We've got several buses that are 50 years old that need to have some safety inspections to make sure they're operable.
Yeah. What about noise? I've heard complaints, numerous complaints about the noise.
Again, this doesn't contemplate any of that. I would assume that there's something. I know that in many meetings with the city of Nashville and the other stakeholders, that the operators themselves have offered to reduce the noise. So I think they clearly recognize that it's a bit of an issue, but I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah. Well, my point being that your legislation gives the city or any city impacted by this the authority to regulate all of these things that I've just mentioned, specifically safety.
Yeah, yes, sir. And again, things that maybe don't pertain to Nashville, but that could pertain to your community. There's so many moving parts here for us to think about how they would all fit together. To me, the best solution, the best path forward is to just give the authority for those people at the local level to make the decision, because they're the ones that have the best understanding of what the issues are that need for the safety of their community.
Okay. And finally, just to be clear, I believe you commented to Chairman Whitson that if it does get out of hand, the regulation gets out of hand and gets overbearing, that you're willing to come back and lead the effort to bring it back in line.
You have my
Is
word.
that,
Yes,
is that
sir.
what you're saying
Yes,
to
sir.
this committee?
If-
Thank
if
you
I-
very much.
If I'm here next year, I promise you I'll do it.
Thank you. We have Representative Weaver. You're on the list. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And I also wanted to say this, make just a short comment. I supported the bill, number one, because it is an issue, it's a problem, and something needs to be addressed. And another reason why I supported it is I understand that the stakeholders that have some of these business are also, they stepped up to the plate and they said, yeah, we're willing to work and do something. So I thought, well, when you get everybody involved and you get everybody to the table, this thing can be worked out. You know, the comment is made, we're all up here, we're all about free businesses. We don't want to tell somebody how to run their business. But if you look at it truthfully, we already do that. We have all kinds of safety regulations in places of business. Heck, now they're trying to put regulations when you're off the business property. I won't go there, but my point is, I support this bill. Something needs to be done. It's ridiculous of the noise. It's ridiculous of the obscenity. I went down on Broadway where I used to go down there and listen to bands. I won't go down there now because it's like Sodom and Gomorrah. It's horrible. And something needs to be addressed. And I appreciate you bringing it and working hard on it, Mr. Freeman. And I support this legislation.
You recognize.
Thank you for that. And, it's going to sound kind of cheesy, but I want to make sure that Nashville stays Music City and doesn't become Party City. And that's what we're going to be doing here today. So thank you very much. Thanks for the support.
All right. No one else on the list. Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said here, I'm just curious as to does the Department of Safety not have any regulatory oversight as far as these people standing up, walking around up and down the roads, the Department of Safety or Department of Transportation, however it may be? Maybe that's a question that.
Yeah, I don't know. They've not done anything yet. So, I mean, this has been going on for a while. There were multiple complaints. So if they did, they weren't doing anything. So I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. And then one more thing. There at the end of this bill, it does talk about liability insurance requirements. The regulations and liability insurance requirements contained in Title 65, Chapter 15.
Tell me where that is.
The latter part of the last page, last paragraph.
Well, I think it's just calling out that that's where the code is for that's where the code is for those regulations.
Well,
I misspoke. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that the intent would be for there to be more than state minimum. So I apologize if I misspoke.
You recognize.
I'm very, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm kind of like Chairman Todd. I love the idea of having some oversight over it, but at the same time, over and over again, local governments want to change the rules in the middle of the game, and they start cherry picking winners and losers, and that just terrifies me to set that precedence once again. Back home, I've seen that happen more often than not, unfortunately, and for that gives me lots of reservation. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Don, are we ready to vote? We are voting on House Bill 1392 by Representative Freeman. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Representative Freeman, your bill passes and goes to Finance Subcommittee.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman and Committee.
Thank you, committee. Good debate, and appreciate all the input on that. There is one thing I want to mention before we get to the other bill, and that is next week, we had a trucking association presentation scheduled for today. Unfortunately, the presenter is ill and can't come, but we will do that next week. Now, let's move on to House Bill number 2. Representative Weaver, House Bill 1544. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to roll this 2 weeks.
Okay. House Bill 1544, roll 2 weeks without objection. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned.